Commander Yuna stood on the bridge of her ship, staring at the empty space where Koleth Prime should have been. The planet was still there, but something was terribly wrong. The blue-green world that had been home to millions of people now looked gray and lifeless. No lights flickered on the night side. No ships moved in orbit, nothing. "Run another scan," she ordered her crew. The Velathi were a peaceful people, tall and graceful with silver skin that shimmered in starlight. They had never seen anything like this before. Her scanner officer, Kel, looked up with fear in his large eyes. "Commander, there are no life signs. None at all. It's like every living thing just disappeared." Yuna felt cold fear creep up her spine. 3 days ago, Koleth Prime had sent a message about strange energy readings in their system. Then nothing. The silence had worried the Velathi Council enough to send Yuna's small fleet to investigate. "Take us closer," she said. "But keep the shields up." As their ships moved toward the dead planet, they began to pick up traces of what had happened. Massive energy burns scarred the surface. Cities were nothing but empty shells. The oceans had turned a sickly brown color. "Commander," called her communications officer, "I'm detecting some kind of residue in the atmosphere. It's unlike anything in our databases." Yuna walked to the main viewer and watched the dead world turn below them. Whatever had done this was beyond anything the Velathi had ever encountered. Her people were explorers and traders, not warriors. "They had lived in peace for thousands of years, sir." Kel's voice was sharp with panic. "Massive ships approaching from the outer system. They're huge." The viewer shifted to show the approaching fleet. Yuna's breath caught in her throat. The ships were enormous, dark, and covered in strange spikes and weapons. They moved like hunting beasts, slow and threatening. She had heard stories of such ships but never believed them. "Ravak," she whispered. The Ravak Empire was a legend used to frighten children. They were said to be a species that consumed entire worlds, taking everything and leaving nothing behind. Most civilized people thought they were just stories. "They're hailing us," the communications officer said, his voice shaking. "Put them through." The viewer filled with the image of a creature from nightmares. The Ravak commander was massive, with black scales and rows of sharp teeth. Its eyes glowed red in the dim light of its bridge. "I am Thektar of the Ravak Empire." The creature spoke in a voice like grinding metal. "You have entered our feeding ground. Your world of Cathara is next. Flee now and you may live long enough to watch your home die." Yuna straightened, trying to look braver than she felt. "I am Commander Yuna of the Velathi Defense Force. These are peaceful systems. We have done nothing to you." Thektar laughed, a horrible sound. "You exist. That is enough. We have consumed 1,000 worlds. Yours will be 1,001. You have 2 of your days to gather your people for harvesting. Resist and we will make your death slower." The connection cut. Yuna stared at the black screen, feeling hopeless. Her small fleet had only 3 ships with light weapons meant for defense against pirates. The Ravak had dozens of massive warships. "Commander," Kel said quietly, "what do we do?" Yuna looked around her bridge at the scared faces of her crew. These were good people, scientists and explorers who had never hurt anyone. They didn't deserve this fate. "Send a message to Cathara," she said. "Tell them to begin evacuation procedures. Get everyone off-world who can leave." "Where will they go?" asked her navigation officer. "The Ravak will hunt them down." Yuna closed her eyes. The Velathi had no powerful allies. The other peaceful species in their region were just as helpless. The Galactic Council was too far away and too slow to help. Then she remembered something from her academy training. An old protocol barely used from the early days of galactic civilization. "Send out a general distress call," she ordered. "Use the ancient emergency frequency. Send it in all languages we know." "Commander," her communications officer looked confused. "That frequency is mostly dead space. No one monitors it anymore." "Someone might," Yuna said. "It's our only chance." The message went out into the void, carried by subspace transmitters to every corner of the galaxy. Most of it would be lost in empty space or ignored by busy civilizations. But somewhere out there, someone might hear it. Deep in space, far from any known trade route, a small ship picked up the signal. Captain Donghyun Kim was alone on the bridge of his exploration vessel, running routine surveys of empty star systems. His crew was small, just 4 people, and their ship was designed for science, not war. "Captain," called Minju from her engineering station. "I'm picking up some kind of distress signal. It's using the old emergency protocol." Donghyun frowned. Humans had been quietly exploring the galaxy for decades, staying away from the main civilizations and learning what they could. They weren't supposed to get involved in alien affairs, let me hear it, he said. The message was desperate and afraid. A species called the Velothi was facing destruction from something called the Ravak Empire. They were begging for help from anyone who could hear them. Orders are to avoid contact, said Taehyun, his weapons specialist. Command was very clear about that. Donghyun stared at the star charts. The distress signal was coming from a system only 2 days away at full speed. His ship was fast and quiet, designed to avoid detection. Sir? Minju was watching him carefully. What do we do? Donghyun thought about the fear in that alien voice. Somewhere out there, people were about to die and they had asked for help. His orders said to stay hidden, but his conscience said something else. Plot a course for the Cathera system, he said finally. Maximum speed. Captain, Taehyun protested, we're not equipped for combat. If these Ravak are as dangerous as they sound, then people are going to die unless someone helps them. Donghyun cut him off. Maybe we can't fight, but we can try to save some lives. As his ship turned toward the distant system, Donghyun sent a coded message to Earth Command. Admiral Ji-won would not be happy about this, but she would understand. Humans had learned long ago that sometimes doing the right thing was more important than following orders. The message would take hours to reach Earth, but the ship could be at Cathera in 2 days. By then it might be too late for the Velothi, but Donghyun had to try. The cry for help had been answered, though the aliens had no idea what kind of species was coming to their aid. The Ravak flagship's bridge was in chaos. Warning lights flashed red as damage reports poured in from across the fleet. Tektar stood in the center of it all, his massive form trembling with rage and something else he had never felt before. Fear. Report, he roared. His tactical officer, scales pale with terror, looked up from his station. We've lost 60% of our supply ships, all communications relays are down, and 14 escort vessels have been disabled. The humans, they're everywhere and nowhere. How is that possible? They only have 4 ships. Sir, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They don't try to match our firepower. They're hunting us. The word sent a chill through the bridge crew. The Ravak were used to being the hunters, not the prey. On the human destroyer flagship, Dr. Sunwoo was explaining the situation to Commander Yuna via communication link. The Velothi leader had asked to understand what they were witnessing. Commander, Dr. Sunwoo said in his calm voice, your people evolved from prey animals, didn't you? Herbivores who had to hide from predators? Yes, Yuna replied, confused. Most intelligent species did. It's why we developed larger brains, to outsmart the creatures that wanted to eat us. Humans are different. We evolved from hunters. Our ancestors didn't run from predators, they became predators. We hunted the things that hunted other animals. Yuna's silver skin seemed to grow paler. You mean you're apex predators, Dr. Sunwoo confirmed, from a world where everything was trying to kill everything else. We learned to work in groups to track our prey across vast distances, to adapt our tactics constantly, and to never give up. But you're helping us, Yuna said weakly. Yes. We learned to hunt, but we also learned to protect. The same instincts that made us dangerous to our enemies make us valuable as allies. As if to prove his point, Captain Minho's destroyer appeared behind a group of Ravak cruisers. Moving so quietly they didn't detect it until missiles started hitting their engines. By the time they turned to fight back, the human ship was gone. They're like ghosts, whispered a Ravak gunner on one of the damaged ships. But they weren't ghosts. They were something much worse from the Ravak perspective. They were persistent hunters who had found wounded prey. Captain Hyunwoo studied the tactical display, watching the Ravak fleet's movements with the patience of a predator. His crew had been tracking their enemies' patterns for hours, learning their habits and weaknesses. Jaemin, he said to his engineer, how much do we know about their technology now? Everything, Captain. I've analyzed their shields, weapons, engines, and communication systems. I could build a Ravak ship from scratch if I had the materials. And their psychology? Classic bully behavior, reported Dr. Sunwoo. They're used to easy victories against terrified opponents. When faced with real resistance, especially from something they perceive as smaller and weaker, they become frustrated and make mistakes. Hyunwoo nodded. Then let's give them something to really be frustrated about. All ships prepare for Operation Persistence Hunt. The 3 human destroyers began a new kind of attack. Instead of hit-and-run strikes, they started following individual Ravak ships, staying just out of weapons range and never letting them rest. When a Ravak cruiser tried to return to the main fleet, human ships would appear and force it to change course. When it tried to make repairs, they would attack its escort ships. "What are they doing?" Thektar demanded as he watched the tactical display. "They're following us, sir. They won't engage directly, but they won't go away either." It was psychological warfare at its most effective. The Ravak crews, used to quick battles and easy victories, found themselves being stalked by an enemy that never tired, never gave up, and never stopped learning. Captain Dong Yun, still leading several Ravak ships on a chase through the asteroid field, received a message from Admiral Jiwan on Earth. "Captain, we're monitoring your situation. The Galactic Council has been asking questions about the energy signatures from your battle. Are we in trouble, Admiral?" "Not yet. But Kim, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about saving the Valathi anymore. The entire galaxy is watching. What we do here will determine how every other species sees humanity for centuries to come." Dongyun looked at his main screen, where Valathi transport ships were still fleeing the dying planet, while Ravak warships tried to hunt them down. "Then we better make sure they see us as protectors, not conquerors." "Agreed. How much longer can you keep this up?" "As long as it takes, Admiral. The Ravak are starting to break. They're not used to prey that fights back." Indeed, across the Ravak fleet, discipline was crumbling. Ships that had worked together for decades were now acting independently, each captain trying to save his own vessel from the relentless human pursuit. "Sir," a Ravak communications officer called out, "we're receiving surrender requests from 3 of our cruiser squadrons. They're asking permission to withdraw." Thektar's red eyes blazed with fury. "Withdraw? The Ravak Empire does not withdraw. But sir, these humans, they're not like our usual prey." They're what?" The communications officer looked terrified to say the words. "They're better predators than we are." The truth of it hit the bridge like a physical blow. The Ravak had built their empire on being the most dangerous species in their part of the galaxy. They had never encountered anything that could outhunt them. Until now. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "long-range sensors are detecting more human ships approaching. A lot more. On the main viewer, new ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Not just a few destroyers this time, but a full battle group. Admiral Jiwan herself was leading reinforcements from Earth. This is Admiral Jiwan of the human fleet," came the calm voice over all frequencies. "To the Ravak forces, you have 5 minutes to begin withdrawing from this system. Any ship that fires on civilians or attempts to continue this hunt will be destroyed." Thektar stared at the screen showing dozens of human warships taking position around his fleet. They were still smaller than his massive dreadnoughts, but now he understood that size didn't matter to these creatures. "Admiral," he said, his voice much less confident than before, "I am Thektar of the Ravak Empire. We do not take orders from unknown species." "You do now," Admiral Jiwan replied simply. "Commander Thektar, your empire built its reputation on hunting species that couldn't fight back. Today you discovered what happens when you try to hunt something that can hunt you back." Around the Ravak fleet, human ships moved with perfect coordination, each one positioned to exploit a weakness that human crews had identified during hours of study and combat. "You have 4 minutes to begin your withdrawal," Admiral Jiwan continued. "After that, we stop being patient." Thektar looked around his bridge at the fear in his crew's eyes. For the first time in his long career of conquest, he was facing an enemy that was not afraid of him. Worse, they were enemies that had turned his own greatest weapon, fear, against him. His second-in-command leaned close and whispered, "Sir, perhaps a strategic withdrawal would be wise. We can return with a larger fleet." Thektar wanted to refuse, to fight to the last ship rather than admit defeat. But as he watched the human vessels moving around his fleet like wolves around a wounded elk, he realized that pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. "Signal the fleet," he said quietly.
"Begin withdrawal to the outer system. On the human flagship."
Admiral Jiwan smiled grimly as she watched the massive Ravak ship slowly turning away from the planet. "Let them go, but follow them," she ordered. "I want to make sure they understand that this isn't just a tactical withdrawal. This is them running away. The hunt was almost over." Captain Donghyun's ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Cathara system. What he saw made his stomach turn. The beautiful blue planet was surrounded by dark, threatening ships, Smaller vessels were fleeing in all directions while the massive Ravak warships slowly moved to surround them. "Soman, are you getting any life signs from those fleeing ships?" he asked his medic. "Yes, Captain. Thousands of them. They're packed into cargo ships and civilian transports, not designed for that many people." Soman's voice was tight with worry. Minju looked up from her engineering station. "The Ravak ships are moving to cut off their escape routes. At this rate, they'll have them all trapped within hours." Dongyun watched the screen, calculating distances and speeds. His single ship couldn't fight dozens of Ravak warships, but maybe he could help with the evacuation. "Taehyun, can you identify their communication frequencies?" His weapons specialist worked quickly at his station. "Got it, Captain. They're using standard galactic protocols. Should I hail them?" "Do it." The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of a Valathi ship. A tall, silver-skinned woman in a blue uniform looked back at them with surprise and hope. "Unknown vessel. This is Commander Yuna of the Valathi Defense Force. Who are you?" Dongyun stood up, straightening his uniform. "I'm Captain Dongyun Kim of the Earthship Horizon. We received your distress call." Commander Yuna's large eyes widened. "Earth? I don't know that world. What species are you?" "We're called humans," Dongyun said simply. "We're here to help." The alien woman looked confused. "Humans? You're not in any of our databases. Where do you come from?" "Far from here," Dongyun said. "But that doesn't matter right now. How many people are you trying to evacuate?" 12 million, Yuna said, her voice breaking slightly. "We have transport ships, but not enough. And the Ravak won't let us leave. They want to capture us alive for their feeding." Minju stepped up beside Dongyun. "Captain, I might be able to help with their engines. Some of those transport ships look like they're having power problems." "Commander Yuna," Dongyun said, "we have an engineer who might be able to help your ships run faster. Can you send us the technical specifications?" "You would do that?" Yuna looked amazed. "But you barely know us. And the Ravak will destroy anyone who helps us." Taehyun spoke up from his station. "Captain, I've been watching their attack patterns. The Ravak aren't very creative. They just use brute force. Big ships, lots of weapons, but they move slowly and don't adapt their tactics." Dongyun nodded. "Send the information to Minju, Commander. Let's see if we can give your people a better chance." As Minju worked on solutions for the Valathi engines, Dongyun opened a secure channel to Earth Command. Admiral Jiwon's face appeared on a private screen and she did not look happy. "Captain Kim, please tell me you haven't done what I think you've done." "I responded to a distress call, Admiral." 12 million civilians are about to be slaughtered," Admiral Jiwon sighed. "Kim, our orders are to observe, not interfere. We're not ready to reveal ourselves to the galaxy. They're going to die," Dongyun said quietly. "All of them. The Ravak are hurting them like animals." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. In the background, Donghyun could see the busy command center on Earth, with dozens of officers monitoring galactic communications. "What's the tactical situation?" she finally asked. "Bad. The Ravak have overwhelming numbers and firepower, but they're slow and predictable. If we had a few fast ships with smart tactics, you're talking about a major engagement, Captain. Once we start shooting, there's no going back to hiding." Dongyun looked at the main screen, where Valathi transport ships were desperately trying to escape while Ravak warships closed in like sharks. "Admiral, we've been watching the galaxy for 50 years. We've seen what happens when the strong prey on the weak and no one helps. Maybe it's time to stop hiding." Admiral Jiwon was silent for another moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I'm sending 3 destroyers under Captain Hyunwoo's command. They'll be there in 6 hours. Try to keep those civilians alive until then." "Thank you, Admiral." The connection closed. Dongyun turned back to the main viewer where Commander Yuna was still waiting. "Commander, help is coming. 3 of our warships will be here in 6 hours. Can your people hold out that long?" Yuna looked surprised. "Warships? But your ship is so small. How big are your military vessels?" Taehyun grinned. "About the same size, Commander. But we fight differently than most species. What do you mean?" Dongyun thought about how to explain human military tactics to an alien who had never seen war. "Most species build big ships with big guns and try to overpower their enemies," he said. "Humans learn to hunt in packs. We use speed, coordination, and smart tactics instead of just brute force. Like wolves," Soman added helpfully. "Wolves?" Commander Yuna looked confused. "Predators from our world," Dongyun explained. "They're much smaller than their prey, but they work together and never give up." The idea seemed to worry Commander Yuna. "Your predators?" We used to be, Dongyun said honestly, but we learned to protect instead of hunt. Usually. Meanwhile, the Ravak had noticed the small human ship. A massive Ravak warship turned toward them, and the communication system crackled with an incoming message. The screen filled with the horrifying image of Thektar, the Ravak commander. His red eyes focused on Dongyun with interest. So the prey has found allies, Thektar growled. What are you, little ship? You don't look like any species I've devoured before. We're humans, Dongyun said calmly. And you're making a big mistake. Thektar laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. A mistake? Little human, I have conquered 1,000 worlds. Your tiny ship will be nothing but space dust. Maybe, Dongyun said, but you'll have to catch us first. Before Thektar could respond, Dongyun cut the connection and turned to his crew. Tai-hyun, can that big ship of his turn quickly? No, Captain. It's massive. Probably takes several minutes just to change direction. Good. Minju, how are we doing with those Velathi engines? I've got solutions for about half their ships, Captain. The others will need more time. Then we buy them time. Dongyun sat down in his captain's chair. Let's show the Ravak how humans play tag. The small human ship suddenly accelerated, racing directly toward the massive Ravak flagship. At the last moment, it spun away, leaving the big ship trying to turn and follow. On the Ravak bridge, Thektar roared in anger as the tiny vessel danced around his massive weapons. Too fast to hit and too clever to catch. What kind of species fights like this? He demanded. His second-in-command, watching the human ship's impossible maneuvers, felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Perhaps, the second-in-command said quietly, we should find out before we continue this hunt. Captain Hyunwoo's 3 destroyers dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. The human ships were sleek and dark, built for speed and coordination rather than overwhelming firepower. Each ship was about the same size as Dongyun's explorer vessel, tiny compared to the massive Ravak warships. Captain, reported his scanner officer Seongjin, I count 42 Ravak vessels. Most of them are dreadnoughts, at least 10 times our size. Good, Hyunwoo said calmly. The bigger they are, the slower they move. What's the situation with the civilians? His communications officer, Jisoo, looked up from her station. Captain Kim's crew has been helping them upgrade their engines. About 8,000 ships have made it to safe distance, but 4,000 are still trapped in the inner system. Hyunwoo studied the tactical display. The Ravak had arranged their massive ships in a wide net around the planet, slowly closing in on the fleeing Velathi transports. It was the kind of tactic that worked when you had overwhelming force and your enemy couldn't fight back. They're hunting, said Captain Minho from the destroyer Spear, his voice coming through the communication link. Just like the old stories describe, Captain Seongjin from the destroyer Arrow agreed. Classic predator behavior. Corner the prey, then take your time killing them. Hyunwoo smiled grimly. Then let's show them what real predators look like. Minho, take your ship and start hitting their supply lines. Target their fuel ships and ammunition carriers. Seongjin, you're with me. We're going after their communications. What about Captain Kim? Jisoo asked. He's doing exactly what he should do, being a distraction. On his exploration ship, Dongyun was indeed being a distraction. For the past 6 hours, he had been leading the Ravak flagship and 3 other large ships on a chase through the asteroid field at the edge of the system. The big ships kept trying to corner him, but Minju's expert piloting and the ship's superior speed kept them just out of reach. Captain, Taehyun said, the Ravak are getting frustrated. They're starting to fire at random. Good. Frustrated enemies make mistakes. Dongyun watched the tactical display as massive energy beams lit up the asteroid field, missing his ship by kilometers. How are the Velathi evacuation ships doing? About a third have made it to safe distance, Soman reported. But the rest are running out of time. Then it's a good thing our cavalry just arrived. The human destroyers struck like lightning. Minho's ship appeared behind a Ravak supply convoy, moving so fast the enemy sensors barely detected it before missiles started hitting their fuel tankers. Explosions bloomed in space as the destroyers vanished back into the void before the escort ships could react. What was that? Thektar demanded on the Ravak command channel. Unknown vessels, Commander. Small fast ships. They hit our supply line and disappeared. Find them and destroy them. But the human ships were already gone, using their speed and stealth systems to fade into the background radiation of space. The Ravak sent hunting groups after them, but the destroyers were fighting the kind of battle they were designed for. Captain Hyunwoo and Shungjin's ships hit the Ravak communications array next, appearing from 2 directions at once. Their coordinated attack destroyed 3 relay satellites before the enemy could respond. They're working together, observed the Valathi commander Yuna, watching from her command ship, like they share one mind. Her tactical officer Kel was studying the human attack patterns. Commander, I've never seen anything like this. They're not trying to destroy the big ships. They're cutting them off from each other. Yuna realized he was right. The humans weren't engaging in the kind of massive ship-to-ship combat that most species used. Instead, they were attacking the connections that held the Ravak fleet together. Supply lines, communications, coordination systems. It's like they're hunting a large animal, she said quietly. Cut the tendons, blind it, make it bleed, then wait for it to fall. The Ravak were discovering this strategy the hard way. Their massive ships had plenty of firepower, but they couldn't hit targets that moved like the human vessels. Every time they tried to corner one destroyer, the other 2 would attack somewhere else. Captain, Jamin called from his engineering station on Hyunwoo's flagship, I'm picking up interesting data from their weapon systems. These Ravak ships are designed for intimidation as much as combat. What do you mean? Look at their energy signatures. Half their power goes to making their ships look scary. Those spikes, the red lighting, the oversized weapons. They're built to terrify enemies into surrendering. Hyunwoo nodded. Makes sense. If you can scare your prey into giving up, you don't have to actually fight them. But humans don't scare easily, added Pilot Yunbi with a grin. The human pack tactics were working. The Ravak fleet, used to easy victories against terrified enemies, found themselves being systematically taken apart by opponents who refused to be intimidated. Their supply ships were burning, their communications were down, and their careful formation was breaking apart as individual captains tried to chase the elusive human ships. Thektar watched his perfectly organized fleet falling into chaos. These humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. They didn't meet force with force or try to match his firepower. Instead, they were dismantling his entire operation piece by piece. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we've lost contact with the outer patrol ships. The humans have destroyed our supply depot at coordinates 779. And, sir, they're learning. What do you mean, learning? Each attack is more effective than the last. They're adapting to our defenses in real time. It's like they're studying us while they fight us. On the human ships, this was exactly what was happening. Jamin and the other engineers were analyzing every piece of Ravak technology they encountered, looking for weaknesses and patterns. The human crew shared information instantly, building a complete picture of their enemy's capabilities. They use a standard shield frequency, Jamin reported to all 3 destroyers. I can give you the exact modulation to punch through it. Their engines have a weak point on the port side, added another engineer, right where the power coupling connects. Their weapons have a 2-second delay between shots, called out a gunner. Hit them in that gap. The Ravak were fighting an enemy that got smarter with every engagement. It was a new experience for them, and they didn't like it. Commander Thektar, his second-in-command, said nervously, perhaps we should withdraw and call for reinforcements. Withdraw? Thektar's voice was full of rage. The Ravak Empire does not withdraw from tiny ships and weak prey. But even as he said it, he was starting to realize that these humans might not be weak prey at all. They moved like predators, thought like predators, and fought like predators. The most disturbing thing was that they seemed to be enjoying it. On the bridge of his destroyer, Captain Hyunwoo smiled as another Ravak supply ship exploded in the distance. His crew was working with perfect coordination, each person knowing exactly what the others would do next. Jisoo, send a message to the Valathi transports. Tell them to start their final evacuation run. We'll keep the Ravak busy. Yes, Captain. And sir? The Ravak are starting to group their ships together for protection. Perfect. That means they're thinking defensively instead of offensively. The hunt is almost over. In space, the 3 human destroyers began their final coordinated attack, moving like wolves closing in on wounded prey. The news spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. On 1,000 worlds in countless languages, the same impossible story was being told. The Ravak Empire had retreated. The species that had conquered entire sectors, that had never known defeat, had been forced to flee by an unknown race called humans. Ambassador Gayung stood in the reception hall of the space station orbiting Cathara, trying to process the crowd of alien diplomats waiting to meet with her. In just 3 days since the battle, representatives from dozens of species had arrived, all wanting to know about humanity. Ambassador, her aide Jiho whispered, the delegation from the Zafrani Empire is requesting an immediate audience. They say the Ravak have been attacking their outer colonies for months. Gayung nodded tiredly. It was the same story everywhere. The Ravak had been spreading across this entire region of space, consuming civilizations that had no way to fight back. Now every species that had suffered under their attacks wanted to know about the mysterious humans who had made the impossible happen. Show them in, she said, but remind them that Earth Command hasn't authorized any military aid agreements yet. As the tall, crystalline Zafrani delegates entered the room, Gayung reflected on how quickly everything had changed. 3 days ago, humanity was a secret species that observed the galaxy from hiding. Now they were the most talked about civilization in known space. The Zafrani ambassador, his crystal body glowing with nervous energy, approached her with obvious desperation in his alien features. Ambassador Gayung, he said through his translation device, my people have heard what your species did here. The Ravak destroyed our mining colonies in the Altair system just last week. Can you help us? Before Gayung could answer, her communication device buzzed with an urgent message from Captain Hyunwoo's ship. Excuse me, she said to the Zafrani. I need to take this. Hyunwoo's face appeared on her personal screen and he looked grim. Ambassador, we've been monitoring Ravak communications. They're not giving up. They're calling for reinforcements. How many ships? Our intelligence suggests they're gathering the largest fleet in their history. Maybe 300 warships. They plan to return and wipe out not just the Velathi but us as well. Gayung felt cold. 300 ships was far more than the human fleet could handle, even with their superior tactics. What does Admiral Jiwan say? She's sending everything we have, but it won't be enough unless... Unless what? Unless we're not fighting alone. Ambassador, half the galaxy wants to help us now. Species that have been hiding from the Ravak for years are offering ships and crews. Gayung looked back at the Zafrani delegation, who were obviously listening to every word despite the language barrier. The problem is coordination, she said. Most galactic species have never fought together. They don't know human tactics. Actually, Hyunwoo said with a slight smile, some of them are learning fast. Commander Yuna has been sharing our combat data with other Velathi ships, and there's something else you should know. What? We're not the only ones studying the Ravak. Every species they've attacked over the years has been gathering intelligence. They just never had anyone to share it with who could actually use it. A new voice joined the conversation as Dr. Sunwoo appeared on screen beside Hyunwoo. Ambassador, I've been analyzing reports from across the galaxy. The Ravak Empire is built on fear. But fear only works when your enemies believe they can't win. What we did here has changed that belief. You mean other species are fighting back? Everywhere. The Corvan Republic launched an attack on a Ravak supply depot yesterday. The Thessian Collective is mobilizing their defense fleet. Even peaceful trader species are forming armed convoys. Gayung realized what was happening. By proving the Ravak could be defeated, humanity had started something much larger than a single battle. How long before the Ravak reinforcements arrive? She asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3, Hyunwoo replied. Then we have that long to organize a defense. Gayung turned back to the waiting aliens. Jiho, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we need Ambassador Minjun and the entire diplomatic corps out here immediately. Yes, Ambassador. What should I tell the species waiting to meet with us? Gayung looked at the desperate faces of the alien delegates, representatives of civilizations that had lived in fear for years. Tell them we're calling a conference. Every species that wants to end the Ravak threat is invited. Meanwhile, in a distant system, the remnants of Thektar's fleet had reached the rally point where the Ravak Empire was gathering its forces. The sight that greeted them was impressive and terrifying. Hundreds of massive warships from every corner of Ravak space. Admiral Kreshtar, Supreme Commander of the Ravak military, boarded Thektar's flagship to hear his report in person. The ancient Ravak was even larger than Thektar, his black scales covered with scars from 1,000 conquests. Explain to me, Kreshtar said in a voice like grinding stone, how a single sector fleet was defeated by 4 unknown ships. Thektar had been dreading this moment. Admiral, these humans are not like any species we have encountered. They fight like what? Like us. But better. Kreshtar's red eyes narrowed. Impossible. The Ravak are the apex predators of this galaxy. That's what I thought too. Tektar activated a tactical display showing recordings from the battle. Watch how they move. See how they coordinate. They think like pack hunters, but they have technology and intelligence we've never seen. As the recordings played, showing human ships dancing around massive Ravak vessels with impossible precision, Kreshtar's expression grew darker. They study us while they fight us, Tektar continued. Every engagement, they get better. They learn our weaknesses faster than we can adapt. And you believe they will defeat us again? Tektar hesitated. Admiral, I believe they will destroy us if we fight them the same way we fight everyone else. Kreshtar studied the tactical data for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Then we will not fight them the same way. These humans want to protect the weak species of this sector? We will give them more than they can handle. Send orders to every Ravak fleet in the outer territories. I want them to attack every world simultaneously. Let's see how well these apex predators hunt when there are 100 fires to put out. Back at Cathera, the Galactic Conference was growing by the hour. Ambassador Gayung found herself trying to coordinate with species she had never heard of, all united by one thing. They had all suffered under Ravak attacks. The challenge, explained Captain Minho to a mixed group of alien military commanders, is that you're all used to fighting defensively. You build strong positions and try to hold them. Humans fight differently. A Corvan general, his insect-like features clicking with confusion, asked, How do you fight when you are outnumbered? You don't fight their strength, Minho explained. You fight their weaknesses. You make them chase you where you want to go. You attack what they need to protect. You never let them rest. This is how animals hunt, observed a Thessian commander. Exactly, Minho agreed. Humans learned war from animals. We hunt our enemies the same way our ancestors hunted dangerous prey. Commander Yuna, now working closely with the human military advisors, was amazed at how quickly her people were adapting to human tactics. My crews are learning to think like pack hunters, she reported to the conference. It's strange, but it feels natural. Like this is how space combat was meant to be fought, Dr. Sunwoo nodded. Most species developed intelligence to avoid conflict. Humans developed intelligence to win conflicts. We're happy to teach you what we know. As the days passed, something unprecedented was happening in this corner of the galaxy. Dozens of species that had never worked together were learning to fight as one force, guided by human tactical doctrine and united by their determination to end the Ravak threat. But even as they prepared for the coming battle, long-range sensors were detecting troubling news. The Ravak weren't just gathering a fleet to retake Cathera, they were gathering fleets to attack everywhere at once. Admiral Jiwan, now commanding the largest multi-species fleet in galactic history, studied the intelligence reports with growing concern. They're not going to give us the luxury of a single decisive battle, she said to her senior staff. Kreshtar is smarter than we hoped. He's going to force us to spread our forces across 100 different systems. Can we do it? Asked Captain Dongyun. We'll find out, Jiwan replied grimly. But I think the Ravak are about to discover something they don't understand about humans. What's that? We don't just hunt in one pack. We're an entire species of pack hunters, and when something threatens what we've decided to protect, we can be everywhere at once. The greatest test of human resolve was about to begin.